We need to have a real debate in this country about how we ensure that learners in the vet system are work-ready and future-ready. We know that this government is not committed to having a conversation about future-ready workers, but we have to do it. We have to think about how we can build a modern, broad-based economy with a serious industry policy. We have to ensure that as we move forward from the health crisis that we've been through, that we are making sure that we leave no one behind. We need to prepare Australians across all of the industries to learn the skills of a modern and environmentally friendly economy. This bill today does not do that. As the shadow member and the member for Sydney has said, Labor will support this bill because we guess it's better than nothing. But if you read the title of this bill, you would think perhaps that a National Skills Commission would be a powerful driver of skills reform in Australia. And sadly, it's not. Sadly, it's not. But it's what we need, and we need a driver of skills reform as part of that debate about how we can move forward through this recession, but also how we can make sure that Australia's future generations are work-ready and future-ready. Because sadly, at the moment, they're not. And this isn't a crisis that we've come to just because of COVID-19. Before COVID-19 and its impacts, 3/4 of Australian businesses were struggling to find qualified workers that they needed to expand and to grow. I know that last time I went to a meeting of the South East Melbourne Manufacturers Association, I was talking to members who couldn't find qualified plumbers for their businesses. They couldn't find qualified plumbers in South East Melbourne. The lack of work-ready and skill-ready workers is not a crisis that has occurred because of COVID-19. It's something that this Liberal National Government has presided over for 6 years, and has not just presided over, but has contributed to with its massive cuts to funding for skills and education and training. 140,000 apprentices lost under this government. And now we hear from modelling from the National Apprentice Association that we could be set to lose another 100,000 apprentices by the end of the year. We can't afford to have this in Australia. We can't afford to have a generation of people who should be entering the workforce missing out. We can't afford to have an older generation who have lost their jobs during this pandemic, who can't get the skills and training to be retrained to go on and get another job. We can't afford it for the economy, but we can't afford it for the sort of community, the sort of country that we want to be, one that doesn't leave anyone behind as we move forward. And what we also can't afford is to continue on with a vocational education and training system that does not put public TAFE at its heart. Public TAFE has to be rebuilt, re-strengthened, supported. It should be at the core of a vocational education and training system. In my electorate of Dunkley, the Chisholm Institute is a foundation of our community. It means so much more than the absolutely magnificent new building that the state government has funded, the Andrews Labor state government has funded. It means opportunity for people young and old. And apprentices and trade and skills doesn't just mean tradies who are building buildings. Of course we need more tradies, but vocational education and training and public TAFEs are about so much more than that. At Chisholm Institute in Frankston, my community goes to learn art and design, automotive, building trades, business, community services, computer technology, early childhood and education, employment preparation and foundation, engineering, hair, beauty and makeup, health, higher education, horticulture and conservation, hospitality and events, a range of short courses in arts and computer technology and mechanics, training and assessment skills, VET, VCE and VCAL, workplace safety. Public TAFE, when you look at that list of courses that are offered, is about the fabric of my community and people having the opportunity to learn and to go to work. And because of the state Labor government, 37 of those courses at Chisholm Institute in Frankston are free. And that's what it means to not leave anyone behind and to future plan, to look at the skills that are needed, the workforce that is needed. Early childhood education and caring is a very good example of that. And to say we want all of our citizens to have access to that high quality education and training in the areas that are needed. And it doesn't matter whether you can afford to pay, because it's a public good and a public right. We cannot continue on with policies that leave people burdened with debt because they are trying to build a better future for themselves by getting vocational education and training. And we know that on this side of the House. Labor knows that. We have a track record. When we were last in government, in 2008, Labor established Skills Australia, and it became the Australian Workplace Productivity Agency in 2011. And that agency did what there is some tokenistic talk from the government now about what is needed to be done. It analysed and reported on Australia's current, emerging and future workforce development needs.
Oh, this is the amendment.
And what happened when the Liberals and Nationals came into government in 2014? It was closed down. So is it any wonder that we now, all of us around the country, in our communities, talk to businesses, small manufacturing businesses, larger businesses who can't find the skilled workforce that they need? Is it any surprise? We won't oppose this bill because it's better than nothing, but as the Shadow Minister has said, taking the same people that are currently doing the work and simply giving them a new name within the department is not actually a real partnership. It's not a partnership between state and federal government and unions and industry groups and educators to come up with a system that actually works for our people. It is, unfortunately, something that resembles the big announcement that the Prime Minister made of Job Maker, which turns out to be nothing more than words. No plan, no funding, no timeline, no deliverables. You can't just talk the talk when it comes to vocational education and training. It means too much. It means too much to people now who are in crisis, and it means too much to the future of Australia. There's a lot of talk about how we're going to get through this recession. What we need to be also talking about is how we're going to build a better future as we get through this recession. Australia can't be resilient as a nation. We can't be resilient as a community if we are not supporting our people to be able to contribute both to their own lives and to the economy. And we can't support our people to do that unless we properly fund and support public education. Public education in our schools, in our universities and in the vocational education and training sector in our TAFEs. We have to continue to push this government to stand up and do more than just talk about education and training, but actually invest in it. To acknowledge that their cuts of $3 billion and their underspend of $1 billion has had dire consequences for this vocational education and training system. And we have to do more. Labor knows this. In his Jobs and the Future of Work speech, our leader, Anthony Albanese, last year talked about establishing Jobs and Skills Australia. And I know there was scoffing on the government side, oh, that's what we're going to do anyway. No, it's not just words. It's not just putting a group of people in a department with a name. Our proposal was an independent statutory authority to provide genuine partnership with business leaders, large and small, state and territory governments, unions, education providers and people who understand particular regions and cohorts. To have a real Jobs and Skills Australia, a collaborative and enduring structure. And as we think about the way we work and our interaction with the world around us, as we go through an analysis of what we've experienced in the last few months and where we want to go in the future, that announcement that Albanese made in October last year has more and more resonance. It is actually genuinely about working together for a deliverable, not just about talking about it. As more and more of our community now deeply understand what insecure work means, as people now understand that insecure work means, yes, you might have a job, but when the times get tough, if you're the last person in, if you're the apprentice, if you're the last person to be employed, if you're the casual that's been there for less than 12 months, then you're the first person out. As more and more people understand what insecurity at work means, it means you might be doing quite well as an independent contractor at the moment, but when the economic conditions change, your work dries up. As more and more people understand that insecurity at work means the need to have a government that will back you in, this is how we're going to deal with that insecurity going forward. It's a structural problem. It's a systemic problem. It's not something that we will just help you out with for a month or two until we think we've done enough, and then we'll take it away and expect you to snap back. Australians are awakening to what it means to be underemployed, to be insecure, and they're not going to accept being told, just go back to the way it was, because they now know what can happen with the click of a finger, with the blink of an eye, and how badly that can affect them. As part of this bill today and this commission that the government is establishing, there's talk about relying on evidence and data, and that is very welcome. That is very welcome. We have to rely on evidence and data in education and training and elsewhere. On display during this COVID pandemic has been a willingness to rely on scientists and to rely on medical evidence, and to use data and research and experts to guide policy making and political decision making. And that has been not only welcome but successful. And we've seen it at the state level and the federal level, a willingness to say these people know what they're talking about. We need to accept what they say and base our response on it. We can do it for COVID-19. We should be doing it for education and training. We should be doing it for climate change. We should be doing it for investing in preventative health. We should be doing it for justice reinvestment. So I call on the members opposite and the government to take the attitude that has been shown towards experts and science and data during the COVID-19 crisis and apply it to policy more broadly, to take ideology and fighting culture wars out of how we look at the future and climate change, and go back to the science and the experts and fund them to do the work that they need to do so that we can build a better future and we can go forward, not snap back. The worst thing that we could do coming out of this pandemic and trying to get through a recession is to say that we can snap back to where we were. That's not where we want to go. We want to go forward to a better future. And for my community, a community that relies very heavily on our public TAFE system, vocational education and training has to be part of building that better future and taking everyone with us. If we don't put the public provision of vocational education and training and TAFE at the heart of our system, then we will be doing a disservice to the people we represent now and the generations to come.